Good evening, everyone. It's very quiet out there tonight. Everyone's very quiet in anticipation. Well, welcome and good evening. We are so pleased, the Hutchinson Reno County Chamber of Commerce, to host this primary election candidate forum for the Reno County Commission Districts 2, 3, and 4. I am Deborah Tufel, and I will be the moderator for the evening. And on behalf of the Chamber, we welcome you and appreciate all of the candidates who have chosen to join us here on the stage tonight, and for all of you for coming out this evening to hear topics of importance to our community. We would also like to share our appreciation this evening to Hutchinson Community College, their staff, and for the use of this venue and assisting with the technology this evening. Also, I would like to extend a warm thanks to our presenting sponsor, AT&T, and to Hutchinson Regional Healthcare System, who support our annual legislative events. We would also like to thank the media and our Reno County Chamber of Commerce members who have submitted questions. We also have a public policy committee that convenes regularly, and they have prepared several questions of topics of importance to our members. As a reminder, the Hutchinson Reno County Chamber of Commerce does not endorse candidates. However, it is our duty and part of our mission to organize opportunities such as this for members of the community to learn about public policy issues and engage in opportunities to hear about those seeking positions of office. So first tonight, we are going to introduce our candidates, who I know you're all excited to hear from. We are joined by 7 candidates for the contested primaries for the Districts 2, 3, and 4 of Reno County Commission. The districts which did not have a contested race will not be on the stage tonight, but will have an opportunity for another candidate forum in the general election season. So first, I'd like to introduce Reno County Commission District 2 candidates, Melanie Ball from Hutchinson, Commissioner Ron Hirst from South Hutchinson, who has currently served as commissioner for 6 years, and Ken Nisly from Hutchinson. Let's give them a round of applause. Next, I would like to introduce the candidates for Reno County Commission District 3, which include Timothy Davies and opponent Ron Vincent, both of Hutchinson. Thank you, gentlemen. And lastly, Reno County Commission District 4 candidates, which include current Commissioner John Whitesel from Hutchinson and challenger Richard Winger, also of Hutchinson. Welcome all. Candidates, we're very grateful for your participation tonight. The format for the debate tonight will begin with a 2-minute opening statement. You'll have an opportunity at the end for a closing statement as well, and then a series of questions that have been prepared by our Public Policy Committee. I will ask the questions, and then the candidates will begin responding in order by district number and then alphabetically by last name, and then we will rotate each corresponding question. Candidates will have 1 minute to respond to their opponent. The first person to answer the question from each district will then have an opportunity for a 30-second rebuttal to their opponent, and then we will move to the next district. We hope to keep the responses on time, and we should have time for about 10 questions this evening. Down in front, Leanne Cox will be keeping time for us, and she will hold up a yellow card when there are 30 seconds remaining. Time will be up when you hear the sound of the bell, and then she will hold up a red card. We will reserve the right to jump in if we go beyond the bell ringing. Finally, before we begin, for the audience, we ask that everyone please be respectful of all of the candidates on the stage. Please refrain from booing or interruptions during the Q&A, and don't obstruct the view of those seated behind you with signs or flags or waving gestures. Applause is welcome, but please keep other noise to a minimum to be respectful of your neighbors. And this has been a pretty quiet audience so far, so I don't think we should have any trouble. Please silence your cell phones, and again, thank you for your cooperation. We'll now get ready to start with opening statements, and so the order of responses again will be by order of district number and last name. So we will begin with an opening statement first in District 2 from Ms. Melanie Ball.
Good evening. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. My name is Melanie Ball, running for District 2. I have been a homeschool mama the whole time. We have 2 boys, my husband Aaron, and my 2 boys Dylan and Sam. They'll be here shortly, I hope. But I'm excited to run and make some good changes. So.
All right, next we will hear from opponent, Commissioner Ron Hirst.
I'm Ron Hirst, running for re-election in District 2. Married to my wife, Betty. We have reared 3 children and have 5 grandchildren. We are involved in a small farming operation and housing. And for qualifications and some experiences, I have served on the South Central Kansas Economic Development Board as a representative for Reno County. I've been a member of the Ag Committee of the Chamber of Commerce. I've been involved, a past member of the Ag Marketing Division Advisory Group for the Kansas State Kansas State Department of Agriculture. We're involved with the being chairman of the K96 Corridor Association and a member of Abbeville Community Church. I've also been involved in several other state and local activities, organizational memberships, and so forth. I'd just like to thank everyone for the opportunity to be able to run again. I've been a past mayor of South Hutchinson, and thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hirst. And lastly, in District 2, we have candidate Ken Nisly.
Thank you for this opportunity to come and visit with everyone. A little bit of introduction about me. Been married for 37 years to my wife. We have 10 kids, 4 grandchildren, and 2 more coming yet this fall. Self-employed, we have a painting business, me and my sons, and we also foam insulate and do insulation. Some of my hobbies are antique tractors. So if you notice my email, it says Ken 620 John Deere. So I guess you can guess which tractor I sort of like. Born in Topeka, raised over in Garnett for the first 7 years. My parents moved back. My dad was a pastor, moved back here to Reno County, and I've been a Reno County resident ever since. I served a term and a half as a council member of City of Langdon because our business is out there and we lived out there. When my parents died, we moved back, so I got off the city council there. I'm currently serving my second role as the USD 312 School Board, Haven. I'm still doing that. I've been on the fire department, District 8, and then transferred to District 4. Also was with Reno County EMS for 14 years. Also served with Arlington EMS for a number of years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nisly. Next, we will hear from the candidates from District 3, beginning with Mr. Timothy Davies.
Well, it's listed as Timothy, but most of the time it's just Tim.
All right.
I'm a 5th generation Reno County resident, and I have lived in District 3 my entire life. I went to Buehler Schools and Hutch Community College, and then on to Wichita State University, and graduated magna cum laude with a business degree, major in accounting. I worked at Bartlett, Settle, and Edgerly after that, and my responsibilities were actually auditing Reno County and other counties, towns, and school districts. From there, I went to Collins Industries and worked in internal audit up to the position of corporate controller. I left there briefly, and in 2007 and 2008, I worked as the county fiscal administrator, prepared the budget, and was advisor to the county commissioners. After that, when I left, Collins Bus called and said that they had a position as a controller, and the opportunity was good, so I said, yes, I will take that. I finished my career at Collins Bus in 2020. I'm now retired. I, like you, enjoy antique tractors. It's one thing I like to play with, and I think I would make a good candidate. I'm married to my wife, Carolyn, have 4 kids, and my time is almost up. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Ron Vincent.
I'm Ron Vincent. I live at 901 East 95th. I've been a resident of Reno County all my life. Graduated from Buehler High School. We married to my wife Becky for 49 years, and we have 2 grown sons and 2 granddaughters. I'm a small business owner for 45 plus years, and presently I am on the Reno County Health Department Advisory Board. Board member for the Hutchinson Home Builders Association, and past member for the Kansas Groundwater Association, and past president and founding member of the Kansas Small Flow Association. Most of my career has been in water wells and wastewater. Not too glamorous, but pretty well needed in this part of the country. I think I would make a good candidate for the fact that I have a lot of common sense and have spent years running my own business and making decisions. Other than that, next.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vincent. Next, we'll hear from the candidates from District 4, beginning with Commissioner John Whitesel.
Hi, everybody. So thanks to the chamber, some notable people out in the audience, Administrator Randy Parks, County Administrator, Commissioner Randy Parks is out there, Mayor Greg Fast, the press. How cool is it that we have a fair press in Reno County now that's fair to Republicans? So I appreciate you guys and you honestly reporting stuff. And then, of course, my smoking hot wife, Jessica, is in the audience. She's so smoking that Traeger tried to patent her a few years back, and so that was an ordeal, but I love you, babe. So I had a crazy idea when I was appointed to the Reno County Commission. Republicans should act like Republicans. The problem I found with most elected officials is they get into office and forget about who put them there, or they don't do what they promised to do. I'm running on my record because, like President Trump, I have done exactly what I promised to do, and my core values are publicly available. With me, you know exactly what you are going to get. Many elected side with administrators and staff to raise taxes, grow government, and waste money on things that are not a function of government. They forget that every dollar we have, we steal from people. I voted against donations to nonprofits who do good work but should raise their own money instead of us raising your taxes and then giving the money we steal from you to them. Buying the newest, latest, and greatest things. Government should get by with less than whenever it's possible. Compete with taxpayers by offering similar services for less money or for free. I mean, why in the world would we do that? Get involved with things that taxpayers should not be paying for, giving tax dollars to businesses and picking winners and losers. So my record, I've come prepared to every single meeting. At least 6 times, Democrats and criminal aliens have spoken out against me at our public meetings, so, you know, that tells you, I think, that I act like a Republican should. Voted to ban critical theory in some departments, that's race, gender, and queer theory. And with the right commission, I plan on doing it countywide, and I'll finish this at the end. There's a lot of cool stuff.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitesel. And lastly, we will hear from his opponent, Mr. Richard Winger.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. And my name is Richard Winger. I've lived in Hutchinson since 1973. My wife and I have been married 26 years. We have 4 kids and 13 grandkids. I spent 35 years at Pools Plus, so I recognize a number of faces here. And I was actually the service manager. So I did a lot of service work all around the county and all around the state. So I got to know a lot of different people. I'm a common sense person who knows how to take care of problems and get them done the way they need to be and in a timely manner. I don't want to put things off and kick it down the can down the road. So as things go in the county, I actually have worked for Pools Plus, but then I worked for the county for about 6 months and met a lot of people in all the different departments. And I think I could be a county commissioner that would appreciate the people that do work for the county, but also my constituency, the people that are in the District 4, and be able to make decisions that would be beneficial for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you all. So now we will begin with our first set of questions, and we will begin with District 2 with Melanie Ball, followed by Commissioner Hirst, and then Ken Nisly. The first question is, clearly you care about the future of Reno County. Please tell us your top reason for running for a Reno County Commission seat.
I really do care about Reno County. I didn't get this in my introduction. I apologize, I was nervous. But I moved here 6 years ago with my husband who grew up here. And I feel like I have been more involved here than I ever was back home in Overland Park. I care very much about the people here. I hope to change taxes. I'm tired of seeing mine go up, and that is why I am running. I'm tired of having more government oversight than limited government oversight, and those are the main reasons that I am running, and I want to do the best job that I can for all of you out there to make our lives better, and to hopefully level out that wage to tax ratio.
Commissioner Hirst?
I was born and reared in Reno County, specifically District 2. Spent my whole life there in District 2. I've been involved, and the main reason I ran was for communication. It seems like that if we have good communication and a chance to give civil discourse between our patrons, our electorate, our citizens, we get a chance to study the issue and represent them in deciding and studying and deciding what they really want and why. And that's primarily the reason, is because of communication.
Thank you, Commissioner Hirst. And next we'll hear from Mr. Ken Nisly.
One of the main reasons that I'm running is that there's a lot of people that feel like they're not being heard out in the western part of Reno County. Another thing is, it was mentioned before, taxes. They seem to be going up by leaps and bounds, and it's making it very hard for those people out in Sylvia, Turon, Langdon, Abbeville, Plevna area. And I'd like to push for a smaller government and a more friendly environment for businesses. Thank you.
And Ms. Ball, you'll have a chance for a 30-second rebuttal.
Ken, I appreciate the reasons you're running. I can relate to that very much. Ron, I do know that there's town hall meetings coming up. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
How are you getting the word out about those things? Because communication is your number one issue.
You know, that's absolutely right. Communication when it comes to people have to take a little bit of initiative on their own to find out. There isn't any way we can send postcards to everybody and make efficient use of their tax dollars. And so it's on the website, renocounty.gov. There has been some pamphlets sent out into the different communities, of which we have several in District 2. And, you know, I've visited all these communities, and I go to their city councils. And first time I went out, gosh, you're the first person we've ever seen from Hutchinson. So.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to Reno County Commission District 3, Mr. Timothy Davies.
Having been a resident my entire life of District 3 and seeing what happens and having worked in government, I feel like the reason that I'm running mostly is because I care about what happens for the next generation. And I really think that we need to really consider the continual incremental increases in taxes and the burden, and we need to change some of the regulations to make the Reno County a more friendly place for businesses to come and thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we'll hear from Mr. Ron Vincent.
Yes, that's kind of my sentiments too. Of course, I've been in Reno County all my life. I'd like to bring some common sense back to the commission. Everything don't have to be this difficult, and make good decisions. We need more commerce, more people. A bigger tax base is going to create less taxes. I'd like to see it grow on the same aspect. By making less regulations, I think we'll see growth.
All right, and Mr. Davies, do you have any rebuttal?
I don't have a rebuttal to that. I agree with you completely, Ron.
All right. Next, for County Commission District 4, we'll begin with Commissioner Whitesel.
Remember COVID? Remember when we couldn't go to church on Easter Sunday? Remember when we were forced to wear a mask? The county initiated a mask mandate. Remember when our employers could tell us you have to get a vaccine that's experimental or you lose your job? I ran to make sure that never happens again in Reno County. H5N2 bird flu is coming, and you better believe that stuff is going to start happening again, and just in time for the election. It's crazy. And then also taxes. Taxes are too high. I am the only commissioner currently serving that voted against raising your taxes by 3.7%. Now, the budget isn't final yet, but they all voted to have a revenue neutral hearing to raise your taxes by another 3.7%. And I voted against that. We all voted against it last year, and I'm the only one that voted against it this year, and I will continue to work to cut government to keep your taxes low.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitesel. And next, we will hear from Mr. Richard Winger.
Well, like I said, I've lived here since '73, and it became an adoptive home. I've volunteered and served the community around me and throughout the city and the county, and I believe that taxes are, could go down, but also I know inflation's gone up, so everything costs more. So we need to have a balance there and have a common sense idea of what is needed for the community at large and everybody that needs to be taken care of. So I look forward to serving and being a part of the community.
Thank you, Mr. Winger. And Mr. Whitesel, 30-second rebuttal.
Yeah, so the 3.7% really is about $1 million of tax increase for the county. Looking through the budget, there's $2.5 million I find of things that aren't government responsibility or are government competing with the private sector that we can cut. We cannot raise taxes and still do the things that government should do, but some things are going to have to get cut. And so we've got to ask ourselves, do we want higher property taxes or do we want to limit government?
Thank you all. Now we'll move to question 2. So we'll begin this question with Commission District 3 with Ron Vincent. The question: how do you feel your professional or volunteer experiences equip you to make staffing and budgeting decisions for Reno County?
Well, in my business experiences, I've had to make decisions for 45 plus years. If I made the wrong decision, I lost. If I made the right decision, I gained. It was nobody's loss or gain but my own. So I take it very serious when I make a decision. That's where I feel like I would be good. And also, I'm not highly educated, but I do carry a lot of common sense. Very good at figuring things out.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vincent. And next, a response from Timothy Davies.
Well, as the corporate controller for Collins Industries and then subsequently the controller for Collins Bus, it was my specific duty to ensure that the budget was prepared and adhered to. And as far as staffing issues, it was the duty of the people that were directly underneath of me and reporting to me and with me to control the staffing, because staffing is about 75% of the budget for Reno County. Having been a fiscal administrator for Reno County, I know how the budget works and I understand the numbers.
All right, thank you. And any comment from Mr. Vincent?
No, I don't doubt Timothy's expertise at all.
All right, moving on to District 4, we'll begin with Richard Winger.
Well, I have, like I said, worked for Pools Plus for 35 years. I was a service manager, which meant I made decisions every day about jobs that were at hand and that I needed to take care of. And a lot of times a person would have to give them an answer to a question or a problem. Sometimes it was in their budget, sometimes it wasn't, and we had to figure out, how we could take care of that problem and not cause a strain on the homeowner. So I did decisions like that on a regular basis. When it came to volunteering, I enjoy that. I work at the Toy Depot on third Thursdays and do tech things, and I just enjoy people. So I want to be a part of the community that listens and answers your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Winger. And next, Mr. Whitesel.
So I love numbers, I love spreadsheets, I love budgets. You can ask my wife afterwards if you don't believe me, because we got a spreadsheet at the house. So I was the director of training for a large franchise. I think we had over 200 stores at the time I did that. And one of my jobs was going in and figuring out where the loss was, where people were stealing. I'm very good at recognizing patterns and data, and very good at contracts. I think probably every other month or so I come back with a contract change that I think we should do just in the regular course of meetings, just because I think we could do it better. So I've got a lot of executive experience, and I've got the attention to detail to make the changes that are needed to both save the county money and look out for the taxpayers as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitesel. And Mr. Winger, do you have a rebuttal?
I'd like to say that we have a county manager, Randy Partington, who takes care of the day-to-day workings of the county. And I know he works with the county commissioners. And you can be a numbers person, but you need to also be a person. And you need to be able to listen and answer questions. If you don't know the answer, I think he would be able to find the answer for us, and then be able to take care of what needs to be taken care of and do the budget the best it can be done to make the county the best it can be.
Thank you, Mr. Winger. And then lastly for this question, we'll have District 2, Commissioner Ron Hirst.
Excuse me, I think got off a little bit. Would you repeat the question?
Sure. How do you feel your professional or volunteer experiences equip you to make staffing and budgeting decisions for Reno County?
Being an entrepreneur and a business owner, and being involved with helping other businesses, my experience has certainly helped me make those decisions that you have to make. Despite you want to look at things and make those decisions based upon my experience, and I volunteered enough that it certainly has helped over the years help me make those tough decisions that you have to do when you're looking at volunteering, and also when you're looking at hiring for help.
Thank you, Commissioner Hirst. And next we'll hear from Mr. Nisly.
When we moved out to Langdon, Kansas, I got on the city council there, and they had only a $6,000 in the bank. Today, that town has over $30,000 from principles that I set into place when I was on the council. I own my own business. I have to have numbers to meet payroll, to meet expenses, to be able to buy another business, because it was 2 years ago that we bought another business. That was the phone business. So some of that experience I would use at the county commission level.
Thank you, Mr. Nisly. And Ms. Ball?
Well, my experience is very different from all of these gentlemen here. I grew up very poor, and I know what that feels like. And I vowed that I didn't want to be poor. So in my early 20s, I set out to figure out how not to end up like I grew up. And so just over the years, I've just identified potential issues, ways to cut back. I've lived on very, very little to get ahead. I'm very proud to say that I have raised my boys learning about finances since the time they were 4 and 5 years old. We had them keeping spreadsheets, so to speak, and earning their own money and learning how to use money and work with money. And I'm just very happy to say that with the help of my husband and boys and all of that and the experience that I had growing up, we live a debt-free life.
Thank you, Ms. Ball. And Mr. Hirst, do you have any rebuttal?
Yes, volunteering and working with people around the state has given me a lot of context. On top of that, when I started farming at age 15, I rented ground and started a custom baling business as well as raising livestock. Now, I got my notes paid off because I didn't have any time to spend it. And I think those experiences on your own really help make decisions later on in life.
Thank you, Commissioner Hirst. Moving on to question 3, we will begin with District 4 and Commissioner Whitesel on this question. A main concern for Reno County residents is property taxes. With a multi-million-dollar county budget, there are many needs. How would you prioritize the expenditures in the county budget?
So doing things that are an essential function of government. I mean, there's a lot of things that we do that we need to do, but there's a lot of services that are nice to have, but we shouldn't make taxpayers pay for them. And I do want to address the one thing that was said earlier. Randy Partington, as our county administrator, does an amazing job, and I'm really appreciative of him. But this is a mistake that most elected officials make. We don't work for him. He works for us. It is our job to give him direction, and he does an excellent job with the direction we give him. So, you know, as a county commissioner, I do look at the budget. I do look at the reports. I do look at the contracts. I spend every weekend reading through the hundreds of pages to make sure that I come to the meetings prepared, so that way I can give the direction that is in the best interest of the voters, not the administration.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Richard Winger.
So I understand, you know, how the county works. The city is kind of nice because if you work in the city, you see all the infrastructure and things that are going on in the city. In the county, a lot of people, unless you drive in the county, you don't know about the county roads, you don't know about the bridges, the water treatments, and the way things are taken care of. So those would be priorities, is your infrastructure. You need to take care of that before you have to have a good firm foundation. And I understand that Randy works for the county commissioners, but he also does the day-to-day county work, and so him working for us would be a way to answer questions or find out answers other than doing what you said you do, is look through what's going on and how to fix problems.
Thank you, Mr. Winger. And Commissioner Whitesel, do you have a 30-second rebuttal?
Imagine that, a commissioner that looks through the papers and stays informed and stays up to date so he can make good voting decisions. I will continue to do that if elected because that is my job as your representative.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitesel. And next, we'll move to District 2, and we'll begin with Mr. Nisly.
You have to fund basic service like fire, sheriff. You have to fund those things first. And I think somebody else had said earlier that some of the rest of it is sort of cream and candy. But you're going to have to get to the basic. And after the basic, then you start looking where are other needs that we can go. And that's part of building a budget. You go and build a budget to that, not going and saying, well, I want this and this and this. But you got to go and start with the basics and then go from there.
And next we'll hear from Ms. Ball.
I agree on that. I think we should stick to the responsibilities just within our realm that we do. And I also think a priority would be to look at the outlying areas, not just Hutchinson, but Langdon, Sylvia, Pretty Prairie, all of those, and make sure that they have the medical services available close that we can provide for them like the same as in Hutch.
Thank you, Ms. Ball. And next we'll hear from Commissioner Hirst.
Yes, let's look at taxes a little bit. It's been mentioned a lot, and rightfully so, because it's your money and my money. In the last 4 years, the expenditures of the county has been 2.31 to 9.15% under inflation. Now that's really good. The last 2 years we've stayed revenue neutral rate. And those numbers are not compounded. So when you add the compounding factor in, you've got some real situations that eventually is going to haunt you. And right now, we are about the 15th lowest county for taxes in the state of Kansas, so that means there's some 90 that are higher. That's just the facts. It's not, we couldn't be lower. But to provide needed services, it's going to take funds, and you just got to cut needed services, and I'll touch on that at my final.
Thank you, Commissioner Hirst. And Mr. Nisly, do you have any rebuttal?
In referring to the going above the neutral, revenue neutral, our property valuations have skyrocketed. The property where I grew up in the last 7 years has almost doubled in valuation. And so if you do that, they base it off of the current evaluation. So you should be getting more taxes without having to raise taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Nisly. Next, we'll move to Commission District 3 and begin with Mr. Tim Davies.
I kind of have to agree with both Ron and Mr. Nisly. We do have a lower tax rate than Saline County or Butler County, which is pretty much a comparable for Reno County as far as valuation and population. We always tended to look at those two other counties and what we did and how we set the budget. But by the same token, the property tax valuations continue to creep up. But also, year over year, if you look at the budget that was prepared for 2025, there's a 34% increase in property taxes in the last 12 years. People cannot continue to eat that kind of an increase year over year, especially people on fixed incomes.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. And next, we'll hear from Mr. Ron Vincent.
Yeah, I agree with that also. Most, if not all, taxes are percentage-based. So as your property tax goes up, which I don't know last time it went down, the county incurs more money. So we're actually getting more money. And I believe in the revenue neutral. We should never spend more than we take in.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. And Mr. Davies, any rebuttal?
The one big place that we can really control the taxes that are being spent is through watching the budget and what is spent on the line items within the budget. Just because a department has a budget for, say, $5 million, like the Sheriff's Department or the jail, doesn't mean that every penny of that has to be spent before the end of the year.
Thank you. Next, moving on to question 4. We'll begin this question with District 2. Ms. Ball, the question is, commercial solar regulations have been discussed by the Commission in recent months. Do you support commercial solar use in Reno County? Why or why not?
I do not support utility solar or commercial use. The reason why is I do not believe it fully generates what they say it does. I would need to see more proof on that. I have not studied it extensively, but I have looked into it a little bit. I do not feel like they need to take up people's properties in order to put those down. We can find better ways to handle that.
Thank you, Ms. Ball. And next we'll have a response from Commissioner Hirst.
Yes, I've studied solar a lot. I don't think we have true economic impact on solar. At the present time, I have thought about doing a zoning on the zoned areas to ban it, and we are in the process of having meetings to get input from the unzoned area. We've had one already. There's too many unknowns yet for me, and so we will let the people decide in the unzoned area. We have heard from people in the zoned area. those folks seem to come, that like it, seem to come from the city and not from the area that's involved in this. And so we've heard from the people involved in this. And so I would have a tendency to follow the people that are actually in the area that solar came from. And, oops.
Thank you, Commissioner Hirst. And next we'll hear from Mr. Nisly.
Solar may be a good thing, but if you want to do it on your own, not with county taxes or not with other people's money. Because I can go get solar right now for my business out in Langdon. 60% of it is paid by the federal government. Whose money is that? That's yours. So they're using a lot of federal money to go put up these solar farms. So therefore, I cannot conscientiously support that when it's using other people's money.
Thank you, Mr. Nisly. And lastly, Ms. Ball, you'll have a chance for a rebuttal. All right, thanks. Next, moving on to Commission District 3, Mr. Vincent.
Well, we all want renewable energy. We all want a larger tax base. Commerce is one of the ways to obtain that. I would rather see the issues like this put to a vote to the public and let them make up their mind personally. But if we want the economic growth and we want renewable energy, where are we going to start?
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. And next, Mr. Davies.
Yes, this is definitely an issue that I'm torn on because I agree with Ron in the aspect that if you want to increase the tax base, you have to increase the businesses and valuation in the county. But by the same token, in the state of Texas, there was a big hailstorm that wiped out a commercial solar project, and there were unintended consequences when a lot of the chemicals that are used in that they leached into the ground and they didn't know what they were going to do. I think anytime we make a decision that's going to impact us for 20, 30, 40 plus years, we really have to stop and consider the unintended consequences before we just dive into it.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. And Mr. Vincent, any rebuttal?
The only rebuttal I would have is we need to think about the people that will have this on their property. I don't like the idea of telling someone how to use their land or what they can and cannot do on it. That's another issue that I have with that.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. And moving on to Commission District 4, we'll begin with Mr. Winger.
I've actually seen solar work in small areas, and it is a great source because we live in the middle of the country and there's a lot of sun out there, but it needs to be investigated and studied before I think you would force it on anybody that lives in the county to have a farm, either a wind farm or a solar farm, just because it does take up space, and like they were saying, if you have a storm and you lose it, insurance prices can go up, and it just makes it hard on the person that lives there and the economy.
Thank you, Mr. Winger. And next we'll hear from Commissioner Whitesel.
So I'm probably the most pro-solar on the commission currently, at least in the top two. I hate telling people what they can and can't do on their own property, but we've got other people to consider here. The Cheney watershed provides a lot of water to a lot of people. And, if we have a big hailstorm, which, happens in Kansas, and heavy metals get into that water, are we going to have another situation like Flint, Michigan, where all of a sudden people don't have water to drink? And so I think an abundance of caution is a good approach here. So I am against solar in the Cheney watershed area for that reason, but I think the rest of the county is fair game. And when we were out west, Walmart had awnings over their parking lot with solar, and I thought that was a great idea. I mean, that's parking lot, so we're not destroying any land there, and you could be in the shade, and your car could be in the shade when you go park, so it's not so hot when you come out. So I think there are solutions, but I don't think the Cheney watershed, we should allow solar there.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitesel. And Mr. Winger, do you have any rebuttal? All right, thank you. All right, moving on to question 5. This question will begin with District 3, Mr. Davies. Reno County is one of only a few counties in Kansas that are not zoned county-wide. Would you support zoning the entire county for planning and regulatory purposes?
No. Simply because land use for a farmer is totally different than land use for somebody that's in an urban area or a city. And to zone the ground on the western side of the county is only going to make it more difficult for people who are struggling to do the job that they need to do to produce the food that you eat every day.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. And next we'll hear from Mr. Vincent.
I'm also a no. That's another regulation on top of regulation. We don't need it, and I don't, unless the people want it. I don't think that someone in the populated area should have be able to tell the people out west how to use their land.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. And Mr. Davies, any rebuttal?
I agree completely.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. All right, moving on to District 4, Commissioner Whitesel.
So none of District 4 is unzoned. But just one of my core principles is that the less government we have, the better. So I am against zoning the rest of the county. I think that people should be free to do what they want as long as they're not hurting or affecting other people. And there was some confusion earlier about mill levy neutral and revenue neutral. So Nick published an article in the Hutchinson Post. You can see it at hutchpost.com, where I kind of laid out the differences. But mill levy neutral is a tax increase, and in this case with the county, it's a 3.7% tax increase. So if a governing body says they are mill levy neutral, they are raising your taxes. If you've got any questions about that, I'd reference that article. If you've got more questions, give me a call. My phone number's out there, and I'll explain it to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitesel. And next we'll hear from Mr. Winger.
I'm a no also because I have worked for a number of farmers out in the county, and they all have good operations. They know how to take care of the land. They don't want to pollute the water. They don't want to pollute the land. They want to give us the best food quality that they can, and they try to do it the least expensive way that they can. I've known a ton of them, and they skimp to get by, but they do the best they can, and nobody should be telling them how to farm or live on their farm.
Thank you, Mr. Winger. And Mr. Whitesel, any rebuttal?
No, but I do see law enforcement in the audience there, and I didn't see them earlier. So I do want to thank the law enforcement for being here, keeping everybody safe. And I'd like to give a round of applause to the law enforcement that keep us safe in the county and in the city.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitesel. Next, we'll move to District 2, Commissioner Hirst.
Zoning, and I would encourage everybody to come to Arlington Monday night and Pretty Prairie on Tuesday night at 6:30 to get a little more knowledge about what zoning does and doesn't do. I look at it as a protection of people's rights. I had an English teacher one time, and I believe what she said is your rights end where the other fellow's nose begins. And I think there's some advantages to zoning. You're already zoned a lot. Agriculture's not involved at all. I have said publicly that whatever the citizens of my district want, I will abide by that. And so that's what these meetings are for out there in Arlington and at Pretty Prairie. And I think education on zoning is imperative so that you understand what it protects is your rights, and it protects a neighbor's rights. And that's where I'm looking at zoning at. I had a whole different idea when I started 6 years ago on zoning.
Thank you, Commissioner Hirst. And next we'll hear from Mr. Nisly.
Zoning can be a double-edged sword. It can be good and it can be bad. But what I'm afraid is it's going to increase the government. Therefore, your taxes are going to go up because we need people to go out there and enforce the laws if we zone everything. I think I'm supporting what these other gentlemen are saying, that we can't afford to go with the government, nor can we go infringe on our farmers' rights. So therefore, I would not be in support of the county zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Nisly. And lastly, on this question, we'll hear from Ms. Ball.
I am 100% opposed to zoning. It's not just the farmers. People make their livelihoods out of their garages or on their property, whether you're a hairdresser out of your garage or a cabinet maker or a plumber or anything like that. I believe that you've worked hard for your property and you should be able to do whatever you want out there.
Thank you, Ms. Ball. And Commissioner Hirst, you have a chance for a 30-second rebuttal.
I would encourage everyone to check out the renogov.org and look at the regulations of zoning, and so you're informed, and then you can let the commissioners know your feelings.
Thank you, Commissioner Hirst. Moving on to question 6, and we will begin with Commission District 4, Mr. Winger. With significant drug use and continued prevalence of fentanyl in Reno County, what do you think Reno County's role should be to combat overdose and substance misuse disorders in Reno County?
Well, it's always good to say education, but we also need law enforcement, which, like you said, is represented here. So I would visit with the sheriff and police departments to see if we could slow down the trafficking of those drugs through this county. We have the third largest county landmass-wise, and there's a lot of roads that those drugs travel through and a lot of places that they stop in. And I would like to see more law enforcement, more crackdown on those type of things, and then education and going through, how to protect people from it.
Thank you, Mr. Winger. And next we'll hear from Commissioner Whitesel.
So I think I've probably got a little different stance on this than probably everybody on here, but I think if you want to do something dumb, you should be able to do something dumb. So yes, we have drugs in Reno County. The war on drugs has not stopped drugs in Reno County. We've got more drugs in Reno County than we ever have had in Reno County. Locking people up because they have a little bit of pot on them doesn't solve the problem. In fact, it makes their life worse than if they were addicted to drugs and then were to get off of them, because now they've got a criminal record. And, it's hard to find a job when you've got a drug conviction. So, I think, providing counseling, providing help, providing support for people who want to get out of it is a good thing. But at the same time, I think that people should be allowed to make dumb choices if they want to.
And Mr. Winger, do you have any rebuttal?
Yes, making a dumb choice is great if it just affects you, but a dumb choice that affects the health department, the hospital, the medical center, and other taxpayers because you don't have the insurance to take care of yourself, then that's not just a choice on you as an individual, but it's a choice on the whole community. And so I wasn't talking about marijuana, I was talking about fentanyl and all the harder drugs that they try to transport through this county, and I think we should try to crack down on those type of events going through this county.
Thank you, Mr. Winger. Next, we'll move on to District 2 and Mr. Nisly.
Sorry, cut me off guard. How to combat drug use. As an employer, as you heard me say earlier, I have a painting company. What are painters known for? Druggies and drunks and the drywallers. Those are the two things that occupation is known for. Yes, we do have employees that do use. But as an employer, I have worked hard to work with those employees, and we got one off of everything, all the hard stuff, because we took time with him. That puts a lot of things on me. So that's where it first needs to start, is with the employer trying to work with that employee and get them to see how good they feel without it.
Deborah, if I may, I believe I was owed a rebuttal.
No, we began with Mr. Winger on that question.
My bad. I apologize. My bad.
Yep, you're fine. All right, and next we'll move on to Ms. Ball.
I'd like to be able to tax fentanyl and take it away from not taxing our property. That would be nice. But I realize this is a really hard fight, and I do like the idea of being able to counsel individuals more that really want it, be stricter on the programs that are out there, and give incentives to them staying within the programs. I think it's just a hard fight all the way around. I don't know what the answer is. I don't think it'll ever be completely solved, but yeah, that's what I have.
Thank you, Ms. Ball. And lastly, we'll hear from Commissioner Hirst.
Very complicated issue. We have one really good thing going for us in Reno County. We have a drug court. And it is certainly, and it's not tax supported. And so have done wonders with individuals at that drug court. We've got a drug task force now that the police and the sheriff work together on. It involves, for kids, it involves parents. Parents have to be there and they have to pay attention. The other part of it is the judges. They have to be in sync with the attorneys and with the sheriff and police. And the other thing is has to be community involvement. Now, there's so many houses out in the rural area that are owned by other people out of state that are not brought up to standards, and I think that's community involvement to help who their tenants are and how they go about handling them.
Thank you, Commissioner Hirst. And then Mr. Nisly, you have the opportunity for a 30-second rebuttal.
Drugs is not an easy thing to overcome. It takes time and it takes a lot of effort, not just only on my part, but on everybody's part to help them, to help those people overcome. And if we each do our part, we can win.
Thank you, Mr. Nisly. And then lastly for this question in District 3, we'll start with Mr. Vincent.
Well, drugs are a whole different story than growing up in the 70s. Boy, if you did a little marijuana, you was really bad. And now you sniff something and you're addicted for life, or it can kill you. How do we fight it? It seems like find one way, then another way comes up. I don't know, but it should be stopped, stopped at the source. Second, I guess education seems to be one of the better ways to fight some of this.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. And next we'll hear from Mr. Davies.
Substance abuse impacts so many families and so many lives, and it's a very hurtful thing, and it's a very expensive thing, not only for the county and the city and the state and the school, but the federal government. I don't know that Reno County has the resources to stop fentanyl from coming into the United States. This is something that we've got to close down the border. We've got to get somebody in office at the federal level who is really concerned about making it stop.
All right, thank you, Mr. Davies. And Mr. Vincent, do you have any rebuttal? All right. All right, moving on to question 7. So we're back to the beginning of our panel. We'll begin with District 2, Ms. Ball. Reno County has invested a significant amount of federal ARPA dollars in child care retention and expansion and housing rehabilitation. When those dollars are gone, in what ways do you feel the county should continue to support these two areas that impact the quality of life for Reno County residents? You want me to repeat? It is a long question. So the county over the last 2 years has invested a significant amount of federal ARPA dollars in child care retention and expansion and housing rehabilitation. When those dollars are gone, in what ways do you feel the county should continue to support these two areas that impact the quality of life for Reno County residents?
I don't believe it's necessarily the county's job to support that fully. we should be encouraging the community out there for the housing, for doing the housing. We should encourage families to raise their children, and we can do that if we can lower taxes so that people don't have to work themselves to death constantly all the time, therefore leaving their children with someone else to care for.
Thank you, Ms. Ball. And next we'll hear from Commissioner Hirst.
County cannot support this. There has, and I think you're seeing the task force and the child care group work on ways that they can sustain this without tax dollars, because we cannot afford to support continuing on child care as well as the other items. So we have to look at other ways, and I believe this task force was working with the child care is working on ways to be able to sustain that program. It's difficult.
And lastly, we'll hear from Mr. Nisly.
I agree with Mr. Hirst here that the county cannot afford to do that. There's other things out there like Interfaith Housing, United Way, and local churches that do go and step in and fill some of those gaps. I think we need to look to those for that kind of leadership.
And on this question, Ms. Ball, you have a chance for a 30-second rebuttal. All right. Next, moving on to Commission District 3, we'll start with Mr. Davies.
Child care is basically a parental responsibility, and there have been grant funds for this program to be initiated, and I do know that the Buhler School District is in the process of building a daycare at 56th and Plum. I think it's great. We need child care in the community, but the taxpayers can't be continually expected to fund the needs of their other fellow citizens. And child care, I'm sorry, when I raised my kids, I had to pay for that.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. And next we'll hear from Mr. Vincent.
Well, I was personally kind of shocked when they gave all that money to ARPA money to United Way, Interfaith Housing. To me, it was creating a monster that someone's going to have to feed, and we can't afford to feed it. It's a noble idea, but it's a lot of money, and it can't be sustained. Of course, the government, state and federal, they're very good about starting these programs and then letting the local government take care of them. And we just can't keep doing that on everything that comes up.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. And Mr. Davies, do you have any rebuttal?
No, I would agree that it essentially becomes another unfunded mandate, and if the federal government doesn't pick it up, then the state's going to provide it in the school district funding, and right now 55 mill levies go to basically fund the schools, and the schools need the resources to teach the kids, but it can't be a catch-all, save-all for everything in the world.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. And next we'll move on to Commission District 4, Commissioner Whitesel.
All right, so a little history on this. So this money was approved by the commission before I got on, and we were told we didn't have any choice but to allocate the money towards that or risk being sued. So what we did was we worked on ways to make it sustainable. We told Interfaith Housing, who got $4 million of the dollars, when you buy these houses and refurbish them, you can't hold on to them. You have to sell them and then use that money for the next house. So, I mean, we've got something there that's potentially perpetual, and it can go on for a long time. As far as childcare, third wave feminism told a lie to women. They said, hey, you see how your husband's tired every day when he comes home from work? Well, you can do that too. I mean, I was a single dad for over 10 years, and it's hard not having childcare. But you know what I did? I relied on my friends. I relied on the people at church. I relied on my social network. And so getting involved with your community and having people you can go to, I think, is a good answer as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. And next we'll move on to response from Mr. Winger.
So childcare is very important. Of course, they used to say it takes a village to raise a family, but it also takes the family. But if that family is broken and you have a single mom or a single dad, it is hard to find daycare and to be able to afford it and still pay for everything else you have. I understand budgets are the way they are and stuff, but I would recommend maybe a commission or a group of people that could get together that would help work on solutions, like you said, through churches, organizations, and other volunteer efforts.
Thank you, Mr. Winger. And Commissioner Whitesel, any rebuttal?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of you know this is MAGA month. It doesn't end with the 4th of July. It goes all month, and a great time to celebrate America. Part of MAGA month is getting to know your neighbors, getting to know the people that live next door to you and that you go to church with, and a lot of times they can help you. I also want to address the drug thing. So I don't use drugs. I don't even drink alcohol. But again, ruining somebody's life if they have a beer, I think it's the same thing ruining it if they smoke a joint. I don't think that we should ruin people's lives for that. I think we should get them help.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitesel. Next, we're moving on to question 8, and we will begin with District 3, Mr. Vincent. Trends in Kansas show that rural communities are continuing a population decline. Reno County is one of the pilot communities for a new Love Kansas campaign to recruit talent back to Kansas. If you were writing to a prospective resident of Reno County, what would you tell them?
Well, first off, you would guess you'd have to like the rural life. It's a lot of agriculture community. It's not for everybody. So to recruit them to come, we would have to have something for them to do. And if they're not going to be in agriculture, then we need to create something for them to come to Reno County for.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. And next, Mr. Davies.
Well, in order to sustain a community, you have to have jobs. And in order to have jobs, you have to have manufacturing. And it seems like all of our manufacturing is now being done in China. And the current administration is good with it. But hopefully the next administration at the federal level will resume some policies that make sense to bring manufacturing and jobs back to Kansas. Hutchinson's lost a lot of manufacturing jobs, and so has a lot of places across the county.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Davies. And Mr. Vincent, any other rebuttal? All right. Moving on to District 4, we'll begin with Mr. Winger.
So my understanding with the question would be how you would want to encourage somebody to come to this county, and I would say that it's the land of opportunity. There is a ton of open spaces, if you want to have businesses, we have buildings, we have infrastructure set up, we have all this stuff going on. We have a wonderful junior college, which we're taking advantage of right now in this facility. I see students from all over the world come to this college. We have museums, we have everything that young families could want, parks and recreation and things like that. So if you want to come here, I would encourage you to either open a business or look for a job at another business, because there's plenty to be had.
Thank you, Mr. Winger. And next we'll hear from Commissioner Whitesel.
So there's a cool thing that has happened in the last few years. Remote work is a thing. So in Kansas, we're in the middle of the countries, and in Reno County, we have excellent roads, excellent bridges. Our public works team, and Don Britton in particular, does an amazing job of making sure that we have good infrastructure here. Don't believe me, drive to Ford County, but you might want to get your suspension checked afterwards. I think to attract people here, you need high-speed internet. I think Idea Tech is doing a great job with that, getting high-speed internet to the rural areas so people can work remotely. And you need lower taxes so people can come here and not pay as much. And so, I'll let Idea Tech work on the internet, and I'm going to keep working to lower taxes, not just keep them the same.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitesel. And Mr. Winger, any rebuttal? All right. Moving on to District 2, Commissioner Hirst.
I would talk a lot about community caring. I would talk a lot about educational opportunities. You have a choice whether you're going to go to a larger school or a smaller school. Opportunities for extracurricular activities vary from school to school. I would talk about the internet speed that's available now. I would talk about the people that care about you when you move to a place. Those are the things that I would stress.
Thank you, Commissioner Hirst. And Mr. Nisly?
I think a lot of these have said what I would be thinking too. It's community. Out in the Partridge, Langdon area, when somebody gets hurt, the neighbors usually rally around. Yeah, you may not know them as well, but people tend to come together and help. If somebody is sick and has a huge hospital bill, they all pitch in, especially around the Yoder, the Pleasant View area. That I have been to many fundraisers where the community comes together and supports one another. That's why I love Reno County.
Thank you, Mr. Nisly. And lastly, Ms. Ball.
I would also have to agree with the community. The way that I see the community pitch in and help people, mostly through my church, is where I see it the most, where people are happy to help and rally around if anything happens. But honestly, I think it would be really hard outside of community to encourage someone to move here because of our tax rate, because we don't have a lot of jobs here. We need to be encouraging businesses to come in and make it feasible for them to sustain their businesses here.
Thank you, Ms. Ball. And lastly, Commissioner Hirst, do you have any rebuttal?
Well, I'm not sure that taxes make a difference. A lot of difference. When you go to Nebraska, you're looking at really tough taxes. You go to some other states. But I think it's caring and the people and the church's availability, the school availability, the opportunity to work, and by the fact, you're 45 minutes from an international airport. There's lots of advantages to home businesses, et cetera, in Reno County.
Thank you, Commissioner Hirst. Moving on to question 9, and we will begin with District 4. Commissioner Whitesel, you'll take this one first. Do you support the county's role in funding for entities such as RCAT and the Reno County Museum, and would you commit to fully funding both of those entities?
No, I don't. So the museum is nice, but it just doesn't have the attendance to sustain the thousands of dollars that we are putting into it, especially when you get most of it on your phone. I love these small museums. Whenever my wife and I go out of town, we seek out these things. But, most of the time they don't have 3 or 4 full-time staff people. Most of the time it's 1 or 2 people, and, they're keeping it on a budget. And so I think we need to spend those monies more wisely. It's great to have, but I think we spend too much money there as a county for them to have that much staff and that much space.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitesel. And next we'll hear from Mr. Winger.
I was told one time that Reno County is one of the richest counties in the state and one of the poorest counties in the state. And you can be on one end or the other, but when it comes to transportation, I have parents who can no longer drive because of their age, and RCAT is a way to get around this community. The museum, yes, small, but it's great to go in. People say, well, I can see that on my phone. Yeah, that's true, but it's more fun to be a part of the event and actually see what's going on in the museum and be a part of that. So as our taxes go, I understand we're limited, but I would try to do the best we can to support those two.
Thank you, Mr. Winger. And next for a rebuttal from Commissioner Whitesel.
No rebuttal there. Like I said, I think the museum is a great thing. I love those small museums, but the amount of staff and the amount of money they spend is just too much, in my opinion.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitesel. And next, Commission District 2, candidate Mr. Nisly.
the museum, I've only been in it once, so shame on me. I guess I'm not very familiar with it, but we did have somebody stop out at our business in Langdon, said there's nothing about Langdon in the museum, so they may have to change some of that. RECAT, it seems like it's only just a Hutchinson deal. What about Sylvia, Plevna, Turon? We don't seem to get any service out there, so evidently it's just in the local Hutchinson. Then it maybe should be named Hutchinson RECAT or whatever, or Hutchinson CAT or whatever, instead of Reno County, because we don't have any service out there.
Thank you, Mr. Nisly. And next we'll hear from Ms. Ball.
I would not be in favor of putting money towards the museum, but I would be in favor of putting money towards expanding the RCAT to the rural areas or the smaller towns, actually. It does feel like it's just a Hutchinson thing, and I think some of those people out there in Sylvia and Langdon and Pretty Prairie and those areas, they feel very left out, and I just think that would be money more well spent than towards the museum.
Thank you, Ms. Ball. And then we'll hear from Commissioner Hirst.
RCAT is available to the rural towns. You need to call in and make an appointment, but it is available. And so it's just a matter of using it if you want to. We have to make arrangements to coincide with whatever it is you need to do wherever it is in Reno County. It is available. I think as far as the museum is concerned, they need to do a lot more fundraising. They need to become a little more independent. They probably, as in I saw in a tour of the Butler County Museum, they need to upgrade here. The state mandates the county to provide services for some things, and we can't get around that. We have to spend money if we're mandated by the state. So in that case, maybe you ought to talk with your representatives and your senators.
Thank you, Commissioner Hirst. And any rebuttal from Mr. Nisly?
About RECAT, I know that there's people out in Langdon and Turon that have used it, but they got flat sick and tired of having to call out a schedule. Well, I need to be picked up on Wednesday morning. Well, we don't do that. We only have a Monday route. Something has to change for our rural folks, because we can't continue on that way. And again, I don't necessarily support funding the museum, even though I enjoy some of the museum things, but the last time I seen it, it was pretty pathetic.
Thank you, Mr. Nisly. And next we'll hear from District 3, Mr. Davies.
I did serve on the board for the Reno County Historical Museum, and their budget is set by state statute, if I'm not wrong, and it's 3/8 of $1 million. This is something that is in every county, and it amounts to $185,000 on a $26 million budget. They struggle to even maintain the building, and most of their staff is volunteered because they can't afford to pay them. And on top of that, it's in a historical building that has to be maintained in a certain way. I don't think you can change that, but they do represent all the communities in the county, not just Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. And next we'll hear from Mr. Vincent.
Well, all fairness on the museum, I think the only time I was in there, I was working on the chiller pump in the basement. So I can't pass judgment on them, and I don't know their budget. As for RCAT, it's needed, and I see it, but is it needed to this extent? You see it running around lots with nobody on it. Should we take a look at it and see if it maybe be better used to run them empty buses to somewhere else?
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. And Mr. Davies, you have the opportunity for a rebuttal.
Yeah, as far as RCAT, I would agree with you 100%. There are definitely ways that we could reduce costs in the program, and that's one of the things that I would look at as a commissioner.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to question 10. This will be the last question before the closing statements. And we will begin with District 2, Melanie Ball. What issue do you see as the most important for the County Commission to address during your first year in office?
Most important issue is definitely taxes by far.
Thank you, Ms. Ball. And next we'll hear from Commissioner Hirst.
Providing needed services at the least cost, giving the people of the county an opportunity to have a say and communicate back to those folks and have a clear discussion, a good civil discourse to come up with solutions.
Thank you, Commissioner Hirst. And Mr. Nisly?
Taxes, like Melody said, that's one thing that's going to have to be addressed. Probably second important issue would be services to the small towns out in our rural areas. We need to look at that.
Thank you, Mr. Nisly. And Ms. Ball, do you have any rebuttal?
No, I just want to say I agree wholeheartedly with looking at the rural towns and providing more services readily available to them.
All right, thank you. And moving on to District 3, we'll start with Mr. Vincent. The question is, what issue do you see as most important for the County Commission to address during your first year in office?
Again, like everybody else, taxes. I don't see it being really very hard to reduce taxes, but at least do our best to keep them down. We're the 15th best in the state. Well, it sure seems like a lot for being that low. I would like to work on that and how we spend our money in general.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. And Mr. Davies?
I think my highest importance would be to be a representative for the people within my district and to listen to what their concerns are and do the best to address those concerns. But also, I feel like I'm as concerned about every tax dollar that you pay as every tax dollar I pay. And it seems like every year there's a 3 to 5% increase in our taxes. There are better ways to spend our money to conserve cost.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. And Mr. Vincent, do you have any rebuttal? All right. Moving on to District 4, Mr. Winger.
Well, like everybody else, taxes are important, and how we utilize them for the county is very important. The county has 20 county departments with on average, of about 400 employees. And the district that we represent is in the middle of the city. So we're not out on the outskirts of the county, but we do make decisions for the outskirts of the county. So how we utilize those tax dollars to make the services of what you want and what you think you need or what you do need, we want to utilize those taxes to the best of their ability.
Thank you, Mr. Winger. And then you'll be followed by Commissioner Whitesel.
So taxes are very important, but something that's more important is election security. There's a lot of people that don't think Joe Biden won 4 years ago, and I happen to be one of them. Reno County uses Dominion voting machines, which are the probably the most controversial voting machines that there are. There was an election 2 years ago that Reno County got wrong by about 200 votes, if I understand correctly. It was an error. It was a mistake. Don't worry about it. But I think we should switch to paper ballots and get rid of the Dominion voting machines, so that way here in Reno County we can have a safe and secure election. At least we can do our part here, and with the proper makeup of the commission, that's I think the first thing that I would like to change.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitesel. And Mr. Winger, do you have any rebuttal?
I think voting machines or paper ballots, if you do all paper ballots and we use volunteers, it's going to take more time, but also I don't think our elections in this county have ever been proved to be non-viable or true elections, and so I don't think that would be a concern necessarily, but we can always look into those things and see if there's something that needs to be fixed.
Thank you, Mr. Winger. Next, we'll be moving on to the closing statements, and we will begin with 2-minute closing statement from Commission District 2, beginning with Melanie Ball.
I just want to thank you all again for coming tonight. And I would really encourage you to vote in the primaries. Tell your friends and families to vote in the primaries. And your vote makes a difference, and we want to hear from you. So feel free to catch me anywhere, anytime, and talk to me. I'd love to talk to you.
Thank you, Melanie Ball. And next we will hear from Commissioner Ron Hirst.
There are commissioners here who are looking at a big pay raise for us as commissioners. Now, we all signed up for a specific amount. They're considering somewhere between a 40 to 100% raise in commission compensation. I'm against that when we only will allow 2 to 5% for an employees. If anything, we ought to be right in the same employees. I want to thank everybody for letting me present my qualifications and experience. And I thank you for letting me be your servant leader on the commission in District 2. And I think my experience, and I know the opportunities and challenges for Reno County complete in District 2. The complexities, I understand the complexities of the budget and also the finances of the county. My background is in business financial analysis, business experience, and I've always been an entrepreneur. And I want to continue my communication with our local residences, that I think we can have good civil discourse and we can come together, and then we can apply that togetherness to create a least cost needed services. And so I appreciate the opportunity, and I would ask everyone to go vote like Melanie, and I'm going to ask them to vote for me. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hirst. And next we'll hear from Mr. Ken Nisly.
Again, thank you to everyone who came out. I also want to thank both Ron and Melanie for being here, because if they wouldn't be here, it'd be really lopsided. And my goal is whoever comes out on top in August at the primary, that we can still all be friends and be neighbors and be respectful to each other like we were tonight. Thank you for that, guys. Thank you for that courtesy. God bless, and God bless America.
Thank you, Mr. Nisly. And then the District 3 candidates will first hear from Mr. Tim Davies.
I would like to thank everyone for coming out to listen to what we have to say. I will say that I've known Ron since we were both kids. We've known each other basically all of our lives, and no matter what happens in August, District 3 will have a good representative. I hope you vote for me, but I don't know by the same token, if I don't get it, we will be well represented.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. And then we will hear from Ron Vincent.
Yeah, thank you all for coming. I've known Tim. Used to date his sister in high school. I hung around their house for a long time. And anyway, what I would bring to the table is basically common sense and good judgment. I'm a good listener. If you haven't noticed by now, I've got to be a better listener than I am a speaker. And I will listen, and if to what anybody has to say, because that's where we get our information from.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. And lastly, for District 4, we'll begin with Commissioner Whitesel.
So Richard, I'd like to thank you for coming out tonight. We've got some mutual friends, and they speak very highly of your character. So I appreciate you jumping in the race. One cool thing is that doesn't always happen in these debates is you've got a clear distinction in District 4. I mean, I'm a fighter. I am not very agreeable, and when the cause is just and right, I'm not afraid to stand up and fight for what the right thing is for the taxpayers. I'm there to represent you. I'm not there to rely on the administration to tell me what to do. I am there to fight for the things that are right. I'm there to do the research. I'm there to look at all of the documents, and I'm there to figure out what the right path forward is for the people in my district and for the people of the county. So a couple of the things that I've done this last 2 terms. I fought against the $2 million courthouse remodel. Guess what? There's a lot of extra space that happened in that courthouse remodel, and all of a sudden, all these departments want a lot more people. People are one of our biggest expenses, and when you got the space, departments tend to want more people to do more things and take up more taxpayer money. There was an election 2 years ago, primary election, the closest one in the state, where Reno County flipped 200 votes when they did the hand count. So we have had problems in the past with these Dominion voting machines, and I think a paper ballot will take more time, but then we can trust the results rather than a proprietary software that you can't even look to see what it is, and you can't even open the machines to see if they're connected to the internet. I think we should actually interview people that we appoint to boards. Right now, the commission doesn't do that. They also don't record all of our meetings. There's a lot of meetings and study sessions that aren't recorded. I tried to get that done first day, and the other commissioners love transparency, but maybe not all the time. With the right commission makeup, we will record everything and put it on the internet for everybody to watch. Constitutional carry in the courthouse. I think that's a big deal. So there's a lot of stuff that I want, but with me, you know what you're going to get. A fighter who supports the Republican Party platform and who acts and votes like a Republican and will fight for you.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitesel. And lastly, we will hear from Mr. Richard Winger.
Yes, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. And I'm willing to listen like the other ones we're talking about, but I'm also willing to serve and be a part of this community and do what the people in the county want. But I'm also looking out here at my grandkids, 3 of them, and I want to leave this county a better place than it was when I came here. And I want to have it so that they can live their lives and be free to live the way they want to live, but also without having restraints and things that are not good for them. So I am willing to listen and willing to serve. I am also a conservative, but I'm not off the rail. I'm not on the right guardrail or the left guardrail. I kind of do common sense and let common sense guide my thinking, and that's how I've always solved problems in the past. Looking forward to solving problems in the future, so I'd appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Winger. Well, a couple of reminders. Please remember to get out and vote in the primary on August 6th or in early voting. You are definitely welcome to mingle following the program, but the doors will close at 8, and let's be respectful of those Hutch Community College employees that have that last duty of locking the doors. We hope you have a safe and enjoyable evening. Please join me in one more round of applause for these candidates. That concludes our program for tonight.